Women are killed by intimate partners more often than by any other type of perpetrator. 1 in 3 female homicide victims is killed by her current or former partner. Statistically, the most dangerous place for women is inside their own home.
Stay alive long nights with no sleep. Fuss and fight, I'm wrong, you're right, it's all me. Midnight stars bright in these streets. No baby high, no kiss goodnight, just cold sheets. What can I do or change to please you? I ask time and time again. I'm trying to be cool, but this I won't do. I think you and I should end. Wouldn't even matter if I held you like this. If I gave you my heart right out of my chest, wouldn't matter if I gave you the world. If I had $1 million, would you do me like this? Learn lines and not.
Victims of domestic violence sometimes stay with their abuser out of fear of repercussions and backlash if they leave. Leaving an abusive relationship is exceptionally challenging, both emotionally and practically. The process involves acknowledging the abuse that's occurring, finding the support to leave safely, and processing the experience and the remaining pain or fear. Identifying a pattern of abuse and making the decision to leave can be incredibly difficult. A few of those barriers include financial stress, having nowhere else to go, the threat of violence, and a lack of support from law enforcement. Family and social expectations may also create pressure to stay, especially when children are involved. It's not easy. There are psychological barriers that get in the way. Many of us have a hard time admitting, even to ourselves, that we're being abused by a spouse or a partner. Even when we know it's abuse, it can be easy to make excuses for it. It was the alcohol, or poor role modeling, or a bad childhood. But what if I told you that ignoring a prior act leads to deadly consequences? Would you find a way and the strength to leave? If you knew that your husband or boyfriend committed this one act against you just one time, predicted with 100% certainty that him murdering you will happen in the future, would you find a way to leave? Or would you stay and live with your future murder hanging over your head? There is one risk factor that stands out above all the others: strangulation. Batterers who strangle their victim are more likely to engage in other extreme acts of violence. It's a message that there are no limits to which he won't go. The odds are he's willing to kill. In fact, a large case control study in the United States found that previous domestic violence involving strangulation is a substantial and unique predictor of attempted and completed murder. Statistically, the odds for homicide increase 750% for victims who have been previously strangled compared to victims who have never been strangled, according to research in the Journal of Emergency Medicine. Fortunately, the word is getting out about this dangerous warning sign. San Diego County, for instance, launched a campaign to teach healthcare providers how to spot signs of domestic violence strangulation. You might think they'd be easy, like look for red marks or bruises around the neck, but it's not. More than half the time, there are no visible marks or physical signs of injury on a victim's neck, making detection impossible unless healthcare providers know what kinds of questions to ask and what other symptoms to look for, such as hoarseness, a sore throat, lapses in memory, pain while swallowing, and shortness of breath. There are also longer-term effects, both psychologically and physical, that are not so obvious. Strangulation is often one of the last abusive acts a batterer commits before he kills. Surviving strangulation is surviving attempted murder. From a violence risk perspective, non-lethal strangulation is as much a red flag as a gun being pointed to your head. As the old proverb goes, better 1,000 times careful than once dead. Today, we know unequivocally that strangulation is one of the most lethal forms of domestic violence. Unconsciousness may occur within seconds and death within minutes. Strangulation is, in fact, one of the best predictors for the subsequent homicide of victims of domestic violence. Victims may have no visible injuries whatsoever, yet because of underlying brain damage due to the lack of oxygen during the strangulation assault, they may have serious internal injuries or die days, even weeks later. That's what makes it the scariest of all. It's a silent killer. The lack of external injuries and the lack of medical training among domestic violence professionals have led to the minimization of this type of violence, exposing victims to potential serious health consequences, further violence, and even death. Not only has strangulation been overlooked in the medical literature, but many states still do not adequately address this violence in their criminal statutes, policies, or responses. A victim of intimate partner violence is 750% more likely to be killed by their partner when previously strangled by that same person. Yet, the nature of non-lethal strangulation is difficult to prosecute due to its lack of visible evidence. For an abuser, this is another benefit of non-fatal strangulation, particularly since the criminal justice system favors cases with physical evidence. Strangulation cases often don't even make it to the courtroom due to their lack of physical visibility, which translates to legal invisibility. Domestic violence perpetrators who use strangulation to silence their victims not only commit a felonious assault, but can be charged for an attempted homicide. Strangulation is also a form of power and control, which can have a devastating psychological effect on victims, in addition to the potentially fatal outcome, including suicide. So what are the signs and symptoms of being strangled that most people notice? Outside of the visible red marks and bruises around the neck, here are the other signs. Petechiae and petechial hemorrhaging, which is when tiny blood vessels burst and leak blood into the surface of your skin tissues, leaving red dots and marks. The petechial hemorrhaging occurs anywhere on the head, but commonly results in bloodshot eyes, redness on the ears, red spots on the scalp, red spots even inside the mouth. Think of strangulation like tying a knot on a garden hose that has water running through it. The knot will cause a backup of water flow, and eventually that garden hose will burst due to the pressure buildup of the water not being able to flow through. When someone strangles you, they are essentially cutting off the flow of blood between your head and the rest of the body, so the blood backs up into your head and your blood vessels start to burst open and spill blood. Other signs or symptoms are swelling of the mouth, bleeding from the ears, sore throat, hoarseness, difficulty breathing and swallowing, clearing the throat, neurological issues like memory loss, headaches, loss of sensation, weakness, peeing and pooping on yourself. Psychologically, you may get post-traumatic stress disorder, severe stress reactions, depression, anxiety, and psychosis. But the scariest thing of all about being strangled is delayed fatality. Your death can occur days or weeks after being strangled because of the after effects of the arteries in your neck being torn from the strangulation, the possibility of developing pneumonia and acute respiratory distress syndrome, and the blood clots that could form that could travel to your brain and cause a stroke, which causes permanent brain damage, severe disability, and death. So now knowing what you know about strangulation, that's essentially your crystal ball to get out of the relationship. Are you going to get out? Remember, he only has to strangle you just one time. One time of him strangling you is all that is needed to predict your future death. Only one time. Subscribe for more morsels of gold. Like and comment, and let me know what videos you would like to see next. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.